Adaptive reuse is really a sense of taking something that is underutilized, undervalued, unseen in the built environment, and upcycle it, recycle it, give it a new breath of fresh air. I do think that that has a profound impact on people's psyches to change the impression of a place. The literal conversion of Macy's and JCPenney's and Sears, the cruciform of the mall, into Austin Community College's flagship place of learning and education and access for all.
Highland Mall was the first mall built in the Austin area, and it was a hopping place. But by the early 2000s, like so many malls, it was falling into disrepair and it began to get very run down. Red Leaf came to ACC thinking that if Red Leaf bought it, that ACC might want to rent some of that property. But Dr. Steve Kinslow, the chancellor, said, "We don't rent, we buy." They worked out a situation where we would buy all of the property. The parts of it that were, at that time, all impervious cover, would be able to buy those out to develop them into a mixed-use development. There was hardly anything except impervious cover with this mall. So we brought DWG in to develop our green spaces.
DWG is a landscape architectural practice here in Austin, Texas. Landscape architecture is a bit like fine wine. While architecture is best on day one, landscape architecture actually gets better with time. So our profession is not just about the physical elements, it's not just about human interactions, social aspects, it's also about time. The sense of longevity and thinking both with plants and materials, but also in terms of how people interact with spaces on a daily, weekly, yearly, or longer, we hope, basis. But there's also so much what we also do is trying to preempt people's emotions, the psychological aspect of how people might want to congregate or hang out longer in that space, bring their families, change the dynamics of community within a place.
We at ACC developed the concept of what we wanted, but then all we had to do was give the concept to Daniel, and when his team would come back, they would have done a beautiful job of developing that concept and giving us something visual that we could build.
Austin Community College and the developer Red Leaf Properties were utterly kind of committed to this stupendous conversion, transformation, and adaptive reuse of what was an 80-acre asphalt parking lot of the Highland Mall into the mixed-use retail district with parks and open spaces, quite literally, not figuratively, going from parking lots to parks. If you were to plop 100 people down into the center of Highland Mall's parking lot and say, knock yourself out, have a picnic, stay a while, here's coffee and lunch, people would think you're an absolute nut job. And they'd go, no, it's hot, it's horrible. It's like I'm in the middle of nowhere. But do that today, and people will sit there for hours on their laptop. People will work on a nice day out on the mega benches that we designed around those trees. Yeah, that's a paradigm shift that completely changes the philosophy and perception of that place. Can literally make it seen again. The main entry road with the double row of oak trees that had been there since day one became the boundary of one of the two signature parks, removing about 86% of the impervious cover, the former road and those parking spaces, and retaining and preserving those trees that were now, in some cases, heritage class, and building a construct of sustainability within that project was really amazing. For something to be sustainable, it should be built for the test of time. It should be about sense of quality. It should be inherently not disposable. And Highland is a flagship example of that true upcycle where it could have just been scraped clean, but the fact that they saved bits and elements and we were able to take those girders and use them, and that's really fun.
In St. John Encampment Commons, there's a gorgeous pavilion. We originally had a plan in 2013 of what we thought that would look like, but after COVID, the prices had gone up, and what we had originally started with wasn't going to work. Daniel at DWG brought in agenda architecture to reframe and rethink of what we wanted that pavilion to look like.
We were brought on and we had to design, draw, fabricate, and complete this within a calendar year, which was an accelerated timeline. We actually went back and revisited the history of the site well before it was Highland Mall.
The land that the mall sits on used to be a place for the St. John's encampment, which was a place where the African American community from all over Texas would come to congregate to learn about farming, education, and about raising up and educating within these giant tabernacles. And it was an annual event that was swept away when the mall was built, long before the mall was built, but the mall kind of represented a change in the philosophy.
While we were doing that research and looking through those photographs, we came across some old images of what the encampments looked like, and there was a few where they actually showed all of these cloth tents that were pitched because these encampments would last, days on end. We were just sort of thinking to ourselves, like, how could we maybe create a steel structure that would be extremely delicate and lightweight, that would almost look as if it were one of these cloth tents that had been put up and down all those years ago. We really wanted to try to make sure there was shade at all times of the day. And what we figured out was, due to the geometry of the curves, we could sort of accentuate that geometry by essentially a radiant rotation of those louvers. So all the louvers are rotating across the entire length of each half of the pavilion. And what that does is that it just changes the light all day long. But there's always this swath of solid shade somewhere on the plaza. The challenges, really from a design point of view, is that we drew something that is curving, and it's steel. So the first thing was really the geometry, and then the second thing was, once you get beyond the shape of it, the scale of it. So we had a lot of different ideas about how it would be fabricated. We thought about the main structure, the main columns and beams being built on site, and then essentially bolting every one of these over 500 louvers into place, thinking that it would be better to have more site fabrication. And the partners that we ended up working with, Renfro+Co out of Houston, asked us if they could weld the entire structure together at their shop, cut it up, and then have it shipped to the site, and we were all game for it. To be honest, we didn't think it was going to be possible, and they proved us wrong.
Can adaptive reuse be an existential kind of moment or statement? Absolutely it can. To have ACC come back and to turn it from a mall to a place of education again, and then to be able to give the parts of the parking lot back to the people, to be a place to lift up and rise up and come together again, and to be able to listen to those stories and participate in telling that story again, that was pure gold.
It was really important to us to bring the history and the legacy of St. John Baptist Association back to this property. because it had been such a vital part of the community for so long, in the African American community, and yet it had just been shuffled aside.
This isn't now the St. John Orphanage again, but it's important for us to acknowledge what that past was as we move into the future. So we may not be able to recreate what it was, but we can at least acknowledge that it exists, and sometimes those histories are hard, but it's important for us to remember them. The fact that a private institution would essentially donate land back to the public is a rarity. It's something that's public-facing, that's about bringing together community, and is really thinking about its context and its history and what its future is going to look like. That's a testament to ACC.